Welcome to Unit 8 of EDSE 614. This unit is a 1-week unit, and our major focuses for the unit are the quiz number 3, which is pretty brief and straightforward, and then the behavior training assignment. And that assignment is due on the final day of our unit by 11:59 p.m., along with your quiz submission. The majority of our focus here in this video lecture will be on the behavior training assignment to make sure that everybody's on track with what needs to be done. So this is our Unit 8 content. You'll see first a written portion here on maximizing intervention success. So it's very important that you are continuing to collect and or wrapping up on the minimum number of weeks required, at least, for your baseline data. Please let me know if you have any concerns or are encountering any problems on this. I want to make sure we're on track because it's very important that we are beginning to examine interventions and functionally equivalent replacement behaviors. Behaviors where students can still have their needs met, the need that is prompting or causing the target behavior to occur. We need to identify first the function of the behavior and then teach a replacement behavior and reinforce the use of that replacement behavior, or the FERB, as we may call it, functionally equivalent replacement behavior. And our intervention is all about doing this. So please do review and read here. You'll see many different examples here for you about FERBs and some techniques that can be used for intervention. More information and examples on function here. Then, in addition to that, we're taking a look at fidelity here and the social validity of an intervention. So with social validity, we're taking into consideration whether the new behavior that we're teaching, or the FERB, is in alignment with socially acceptable behavior or practices. So we really need to think about culture here and what is most appropriate in the school setting, what is not causing harm to the student or to others, and ultimately, what kind of functionally equivalent replacement behavior will be most appropriate in the real world setting, whether that is out in the community, for students even at a young age, or ultimately in post-secondary living. If students are getting older, that's even more of a focus. So please do review this. And then in addition, the fidelity of implementation is essential to examine for an intervention. Some example questions which can address fidelity of implementation are right here. How well is this intervention being implemented, and how closely are we monitoring the progress with the intervention? So you can see example questions here. What will you use to collect data, and who will collect the data, and how will the data be collected? So who will do what and when is the main question here, and that has to do with the implementation plan, making sure that we're doing all of that with fidelity to set the student up for success along with the team. You'll see an example here where observations can take place to check and see if the teacher or whatever provider is working with the student is doing each of these strategies. And to ensure that the interventions are being implemented, we can do observations, random recording, data collection like this, because obviously, if we're not implementing the intervention with fidelity, there's going to be much less of a result or success for the student. Or if we're implementing it poorly and inconsistently enough, there may be no result of success or even further concerns or issues because of the inconsistency. So please do keep that in mind. And finally, a point here on generalization and maintenance. Generalization, we want to make sure that the FERB is taking place across settings as necessary. So if the student generally screams and cries rather than asking with words or visuals or sign for what is needed, the FERB of communicating with words, visuals, or signs, whatever is set up individually for that student, could occur in the classroom setting, but eventually we also want to see it occur on the playground in the same situations. We want to see it occur at the grocery store, at home with the parent or the family member, and making sure that we're communicating with those in the home setting for the student is a great way to check and see if generalization is taking place, along with observing the student in the cafeteria or during snack time, at recess or at gym, and across academic settings, passing periods, hallways, etc. This is a lecture. It's very important that you do watch this. It's very good information, especially as we move forward with really clearing up identification of the function of the target behavior and then developing an intervention. Take a look at competing behavior pathway concepts here. This is Dr. Francie Murray with the University of Northern Colorado, who has created this lecture as a component for our course. So please do review that. 2 different formatting options here for you to watch her lecture. There is a quiz in this unit. You can see that it's pretty brief and straightforward. It's worth 5 points. It's just a check for understanding. There is an opportunity for a short answer at the end of the quiz if you want to provide comments or written feedback about the course thus far, any of the concepts or any questions that you may have. However, if you do have a question that you would like a faster response to, please do email me or message me through Canvas in the inbox. That will be the best way. So I would encourage you to just include comments in that box to ensure that you hear back in the most timely manner possible. You will complete this quiz by the final day of our unit at 11:59 p.m. And this is the major focus area for this unit, the behavior training assignment, which will also be due on the final day of our unit at 11:59 p.m. You originally chose an article. If you need review, you can go back, take a look. There was a very lengthy list of articles, and you want to make sure that you're choosing one most relevant for you. If you have a concern or want to switch your article, just let me know. But you'll need 10 additional resources that are relevant to the content in the article. So they don't have to be exactly the same, but something that connects to it, supports it, aligns with it. These don't all have to be academic journal articles. It would be definitely good to include some of those, but you can see here the examples. You can use course materials, books, if you find perhaps the IRIS modules, etc. about behavior and in particular in alignment with the primary article that you have chosen. You are creating a training for paraprofessionals or paraeducators, and this training is something that will describe a relationship between behavior, as you can see here, and implications for practice. So particularly this will be focused on practice in the school setting, but you will want to extend the concept to effects on the home and the community, just as we were talking about with generalization previously in this video. So you'll see a clear list here, and the rubric is down on the bottom for what you'll need to submit. So you'll see here a training for paraprofessionals. This also could be for general educators, but you really want to keep it targeted on that para audience, particularly for paraprofessionals who will be working frequently with students with disabilities, IEPs, some of whom may have behavioral challenges that they exhibit, and some of whom may have a behavior plan, as this is a course in special education. So you will take a look at the technique in the article that you selected as the basis for your training, and then you'll be supporting it with the other 10 sources that you used. So both your paper and your presentation, you'll just want to make sure that your formatting is correct and accurate, APA format per usual. This is what you'll need. At least three objectives that you will accomplish. So you all are familiar with this in the classroom setting. It's student will be able to X, Y, and Z. And you want those objectives to be very clear. And instead it will be paraprofessionals or participants will be able to clearly list and identify 3 strategies to address X behavior. That's just an example. So you'll need 3 learning outcomes or objectives. I'm going to make those very clear. You'll include any PowerPoints or handouts and an outline of your training. So this can be a Microsoft Word document for your objectives. The outline, what will you do and when, how lengthy will the training be, will it be on an in-service day, will it be offered for credit before or after school hours, will it be in multiple parts, etc. And then these PowerPoints obviously would be in PowerPoint format. If you do create a presentation, that's great, or an overhead presentation, and handouts, you can do PDF, Microsoft Word, create something where they can fill in blanks. These are just some ideas for supplemental materials that your participants might use. And then you will need to create at least one activity where the participants will be participating. You can see that that's a little repetitive statement right there, but something that your paraprofessionals or those taking your course will be able to do. So you may think about small group questions for discussion. Role play is a great one. You might examine a case study that she can create with a name that is not personally identifying any student. Demonstration of the techniques, and that might align into the role play. Something where they will be engaged and active, and you want to clearly describe that and include any relevant materials or questions for that in your document. And then you can put this all in one document. It'll be a 3-page paper below that explaining your plans for follow-up support. You'll want to cite all of your sources throughout here, so you can put them in the training outline as you're talking about the material. You can put them in the follow-up support outline. We just want to make sure that we're showing the integration of those sources throughout. So what's your plan to check in, evaluate the effectiveness of the training? And speaking of evaluation, this final component will be an exit evaluation that your people would complete. So perhaps Likert scale, short answer, feedback on the training, further questions, etc. And once again, you will cite in APA format, 6th edition. So you can see the objectives. Student will be able to graphics, PowerPoints, handouts, any websites. This is all what we just talked through. And supporting materials. This is in alignment with these handouts as well. Whatever you'll be using to help them and support them. And that also you'll want to address positive behavior interventions and supports. This is something that can be in alignment with RTI. So when we're talking about RTI and MTSS, really that would be a good thing to integrate in alignment with this component is first of all for the whole school, and then for those in the other 2 tiers who are receiving additional intervention. So do keep that in mind as something that you can tie in. Once again, citing the research, and as we mentioned, they don't all have to be peer-reviewed articles, but the rubric does highlight here at least 5. So that's good to pay attention to, and then 2 texts or books. And you'll see that this could be the course texts. That's a good way to do that. And then you can use websites as well. For instance, if you want to use any websites that have been provided or referenced in this course, that's a good way to do it. Then you'll see here some outlines and details that you can include for the follow-up, and that will just be to check in and make sure that everybody is doing okay and is able to implement your training and the concepts therein with fidelity. You want to be clear and concise, and just make sure as you consider seminars and professional development that you've done before that this is a training that you would want to take. Make sure that it's interesting, dynamic, and engaging, and that's very important as we're planning this. So, as always, please let me know if you have any questions. This assignment is the main focus for our unit, and then we'll be moving along next week.